Oh, just kind of sitting here whittling. Started a couple minutes early just to sit here and relax in the sunshine. I'm just gonna whittle. Not quite 2 o'clock yet, so we're just gonna enjoy the weather. And once 2 o'clock hits, we'll get started. So I've been whittling for a while, long time, been in Girl Scouts forever. Started using a pocket knife a million years ago. So just sit with me, relax, feel that sunshine if you're in those far northern states where you're having all that spring snow. If you're down in Florida where it's already hot, oh, it's nice here. It's maybe 60. So, all right. Looks like it's about 2 o'clock. Gonna get started here momentarily. How many of you own a pocket knife out there? Anybody? Don't see any comments yet. Anybody on there yet? If you're just jumping on, I'm just sitting here whittling, kind of waiting for everybody. So, how we doing there? All right. Tammy joined. Hi. I think we had lunch together a while ago via Team. There we go. There's the ding for 2 o'clock. So, all right. Let's go ahead and get started. So, I already asked you guys, how many of you own a pocket knife out there? I happen to own a whole bunch, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, my name is Vicki Proctor, and I am the outdoor program team leader in Girl Scouts of Western Ohio Council. And I work a little bit in the Dayton office. I work a little bit in the Lima office. And actually I used to work in those. We haven't been there for a while. And then I also am in charge of all of our Girl Scout camps, the programming there. So we have 6 of them. And believe me, I think I've probably whittled a little bit at every camp. So anyway, so what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about whittling and knives. So while people are jumping on, I know that we get an audience from like all over the place. In Ohio, we've seen you from Texas, Utah, California. Zazu was on the other day from Wales, you know, over there and across the ocean. So quite an audience. So what I want to know is how many of you that have a knife or have used a knife before, did you do any kind of whittling projects with them? So maybe if you can just type in there, you know, what you've done, that would be fun to know. You know, if you've carved something, if you've whittled something, you know, if so, what? I have some samples for a little later on. I'll show you some of the things that I've done. A lot of people just like to sit and do this. Just take the bark off a stick, put a point in the end, and find another stick and carve the bark off and point and make another point. So anyway, so this is Monday, and we usually go over some traditions, good old Girl Scout traditions. And I feel like, you know, traditions are things like camping. We always do that. We do a lot of hiking. I did some campfire building here a couple weeks ago. That's very traditional of Girl Scouts. But the other thing that is a tradition that goes way back is being able to use a pocket knife. And really, whittling is a really fun thing to do, but not only is it fun, it's an essential tool. And, you know, I debate with a lot of people. They're like, oh, I don't know if, you know, I want my daughter to have a knife. And it's like, you know, when you're in Girl Scouting long enough and you start doing more and more outdoors, it's a tool. I mean, like an essential tool. And you'll start doing a lot more with it. So let me turn my page here. It's a little bit windy today. So what we're going to do today, for those of you who have joined in, we're going to talk about how to choose a knife. So how do you purchase one? What do you know what to buy? Or how do you know what to buy? We're going to learn about sharpening it and how to care for your knife. We're going to use it safely and then talk maybe a little bit about the kind of wood that's easy to use or you should use. And then I'm going to show you some whittling samples. So if you have a knife with you, just hang on a little bit. Don't open it up yet. We'll talk about that. But anyway, again, where are you from, and have you ever owned a pocket knife? And any things that you've made or whittled with your knife, that would be fun to know. If you have any questions, so my buddy is like about 2 hours north of here. Hi, Becky. She's sitting up there in the far frozen tundra of northern Toledo, and she will try to answer your questions, and if not, I'll get on afterwards. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So there is a lot to consider when you are going to buy a knife, but I think probably the most important one ultimately is, what are you the most comfortable with? Like, what feels the best in your hand? What's big enough or small enough? What can you do, what you need to do? And that's what's important. So, but I'm going to tell you about some of the different knives. So I'm sort of a knifeaholic, so I have a lot of different knives. And I'm just going to start and show you some different features. So here's a very small pocket knife, and it's nice. It's small enough, one blade, that you can just carry it around in a pocket, and it can do little work for you. This one has two blades, a larger and a smaller blade. This is kind of a pretty wooden one, the handle. My dad used to carry one like this all the time, so more traditional. This one's kind of a neat silver metalish one. This has several blades. This also has a corkscrew, but you know, unless you use corkscrews a lot, you know, I don't know why you need one. Bad thing about this is when you carve with it, I'm like holding that corkscrew, and it's not very comfortable. Here's one of my favorite ones, a really nice little blue one. It only has one blade, but it's very simple, and I do a lot of carving or whittling with that. Another all-time favorite of mine, this is a wooden one. This has a lot of really cool things on it. Knives come with a lot of features, and my thumbnail's getting too long to open some of these up. There are bottle openers, there's the regular blade, this one, there's a regular blade. This one is cool. I use this a lot. This is a saw blade, and so it's like edges like a saw. And it has other miscellaneous screwdriver. I think it has scissors. Doesn't have the kitchen sink, but almost. Then you get to some of the knives that are a little bit more advanced. This is like a switch knife, and it just kind of pops open with a button, and then I can push it shut. I have a couple of those. The only thing bad about these, they have a hook that you can put on your belt or your pants and carry it around. But again, when I'm whittling, that's in my way, so I just don't necessarily like. Some people say you can file that off, but anyway, I have a couple kind of those. A lot of knives come in nice little knife holders or pockets like that. This is, again, a really nice, this is a knife that has one blade. I'll show you that a little farther here. I have a bigger one. This weighs like 5 pounds, it feels like. It has one regular blade, and then it has a saw blade on it, and so that would be real handy. Again, it's pretty heavy. I'm not sure I'd want a backpack with this because it would weigh more than half of my food, I think. And then last but not least, this is one of my favorite knives. I made this sheath. It's out of yak hair. I like making, you know, fun nature related things, and I just happen to have some yak hair laying around. But this is a bigger knife. This is more, some people call it kind of like a hunting knife. It's just got one blade. It's doesn't do anything. It's one solid piece. And actually my brother made this. He's an engineer, and he designed the handles and put them together. And you can actually buy kits and make your own knives. So I keep it in there. I can actually tie this on, put it on my belt. And then a couple other kind of knives that aren't great for sitting and whittling because there's a lot to them, but the multi-tool, it's really cool. You can open it up, and not only does it have all the knife blades, but then it has like the pliers on it. Okay, so there's that. And then when I go kayaking, I have a life jacket on and I want a knife, but I had a knife once and I took it out and it went splash and I lost it. So now I have one that's shaped like a carabiner, and I hooked that onto my life jacket, and so my knife is in it, but it's always hooked to my life jacket by a string, and that way if I do drop it, it's only at the end of my string. I'm not going to lose it in the lake again. So there's some of your pocket knives. So a lot of different uses, and again, we'll touch base on some of those. So let's talk about, like, what do you look for in a knife? So I think the first thing is the quality. So if you go to the store, you could probably buy a $3 pocket knife, and while that might suit you just fine if you're going to whittle once every 2 years or such, or you're not going to use it very much, that might be just perfect for you, and go for it. But if you're going to whittle a little bit more and you want something of more quality, so this knife here, what you want to look for is that it's made well. It has good materials. When I kind of move the knife and the blade, there's no play in there. It's good solid. This is a good attachment piece here that keeps the handle together. So you want to look for good quality. And a lot of times they'll tell you if the blade is made out of a good, like a steel. Some are better than others, and you want a good knife like that. So quality. So don't buy cheap. Try to get a nice knife that you're going to keep for a while. And then the other thing, just like we touched on, is some of the features. So if you really think you need a corkscrew, buy one with a corkscrew. I use it sometimes to pry things. So if you want a saw blade, I actually use my saw blade a lot to cut little branches if I'm going to whittle on those. So again, just personal preference. The big knife I use if I'm going to do some heavy whittling. So if you need screwdrivers, a knife with a lot of different things comes in handy, because then you don't have to have 6 different implements. So there you go. There's what I would recommend is a knife that has like 1 or 2 blades. This little pocket knife that I showed you has 2 blades, a longer one that you can do some big work with, and then a smaller if I want to get more detailed in carving. So, all right, moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about carving. And I have this book. It's called The Little Book of Whittling. And I have a little thing in here. It's 10 extremely important rules of carving. And I'm going to read them to you because they're quick, and I just want you to understand the important rules of carving. So quickly, number 1, make sure your knife is sharp. Number 2, your knife must be really sharp. Number 3, don't try carving with a knife that isn't sharp. Number 4, before starting to carve, check your knife to see if it's sharp. 5, carving with a less than sharp knife is very frustrating. Number 6, in the realm of wood carving, sharp is good, dull is bad. Number 7, keep your knife sharp. Number 8, if your knife is really sharp, it will cut much better. Number 9, if you miss the point of rules 1 through 8, make sure the knife you carve with is sharp. And then the last one, if there's any remaining doubt, refer back to rules 1 through 9. So I know you're probably going, oh, she's, wow, why would you read all those? Having a sharp knife really is important, and I read those for you because this guy who wrote this is adamant that you have a sharp knife. So we're going to move into how to sharpen a knife. Believe me, when you have a dull knife, you have to work harder, and you get frustrated because you're having to work harder, you're not getting much off, and really the harder you work, the frustrated, you get sloppy, and you can cut yourself. Now this is going to be a little morbid, but if you accidentally cut yourself with a sharp knife, and again this sounds weird, you'll have a clean cut. and they heal really fast. If you have a dull knife and you're working really hard, sometimes that's so dull it's going to rip more than it's going to cut, and I hate to say that, but to make the point is, there are a lot of reasons why you really need to have a sharp knife. So what you need to buy is just very few things, probably just one thing, and it's called a sharpening stone. And this is a little sharpening stone, and this is a sharpening stone. These are small ones. Sometimes you'll see ones that are about 1 foot long and about 4 inches wide, and they're kind of heavy. But what you want is something that has, and another name for these are whetstones, and that's kind of an old antique term. They're more just sharpening stones. But there's going to be a rough side and a smooth side. This actually has 3, but I'm just going to show you the rough side. That's what you'd use first, and then there's a little less rough side. And then this, I actually have a 3rd side that's called fine. But if you only have the 2 sides, then you can actually get sandpaper. And let's talk about sandpaper. And you're like, well, I thought we were talking about knives. Anybody ever sharpened their knives with sandpaper? So sandpaper comes in different grits. You can find on here, this is 220, and it goes up to 300, 600. The higher the number, the finer the sandpaper. And I'll get to the sandpaper in a minute. So, okay, to sharpen your knife, it's really simple, and I'm going to use this knife here so you can see a little better. So you take the rough side, and actually what we're going to do right now is called grinding. It's all about sharpening, but this part is called grinding. And I'm going to lay my knife not flat, but flat and then tilt it up a little bit so I'm on my blade. And then I'm going to go around in a circle. Now this is narrow, so I'm going to start kind of at the back of my blade and then move towards the point of it. I'm going to go back and forth in a circle. Now that's only one side, so flip your knife over and do the other side. Now what that's doing is it's grinding down just that very sharp point in your knife, the very edge. I'm going to do that a couple times, and then once I do that back and forth, then I'm going to flip over to the more fine side. Okay, what that's going to do is where I ground it, and there might still be some imperfections, this is going to be a little softer. And I don't know if you can hear that grinding and then nice fine. Okay, I'm going to do that on both sides. Now once I get this sharp, most of you that's probably perfect, but people that are like really, oh, I want to hone my knife good, and that's a term that you would use, honing, grinding and honing, is now I'm going to take this sandpaper and I can put it on a block, and I might still have tiny little imperfections, but then I can, on this very fine sandpaper, just get those last little imperfections down, and then I've got just a really nice sharp blade. And then we are ready to go. Okay? So that's sandpaper. So this is a very fine grit. You can move your hand over it and probably go, there's nothing on there. And that's the whole point. There is. It's just very fine. All right. So let's get this stuff out of my way here. And let's talk about the care of your knife, because your knife should last a long time. You could get a knife for a lifetime if you don't like misplace them like I do. I have them all over the house, and I never can find it when I want it. But we're going to talk about the care. This is your trusted friend. Like, you want to take care of your friend, so you want to keep your knife dry. And if you do get out in the rain, drop it in the pond or something like that, or the water, just dry it off really, really good. You could even take the hair dryer and get it in there where it, moves, and get it really dry. You want to store it in a dry place, like not on real humid, wet areas, because then it could rust. And then you want to keep it clean. So after you have whittled, where the mechanism is, where you open and close it, sometimes you get stuff in there. You can take like a little something, sometimes I've taken a needle or something and tried to get little pieces of crud out of there. And then what you want to do is, in those moving points, sometimes they get really, like, you're like, oh, I can barely open it. And what you have to do is just take a little oil. This is like 3-in-1 oil. This is gun oil, so if you have anybody in the house that cleans guns, if you just take a little drop, one tiny little drop right here where it opens and closes, then that's great. Okay, that keeps that moving really good. All right. The other thing about knives, there's some games you can play, or you may end up sticking it down in the dirt. Most people will say, don't do that. It's hard on your knife, and it is. But what it really does is takes away the sharpening part of your knife, or the sharpened part, and you just have to sharpen it again. So that kind of dulls it up. So that's the care of your knife. Let's talk quickly how to open and close. So fingernail, there's always a little slot. You want to hold it in one hand, take your fingernail in the slot, and just open it all the way up until it goes all the way open. Now you want to close it exactly the same way. Close it all the way until it stops. You want to keep your fingers out of the way, okay? You don't want to chop any of those off. I see a lot of people, they kind of bend it and then they snap it closed on their, pants or something. You don't want to do that. You never know if you have a finger in there or not. So open it this way and close it this way. Now, if you're to pass it, well, let's say if you're walking around, close your knife, because who knows, you might drop it in your foot. You could just drop it and land on it. So if you're going to walk around, you're whittling, stay in a spot, but close it to walk around. If you want to pass it, close it. But if you were to pass it to your friend, it's easier than closing and doing all that. But if you are, take the blade, kind of hold it where the blade is. Don't hand them the blade, because you're either going to cut them or they're not, going to feel that. Hand them the handle. Then you don't let go. It's like, let go, no. Until they say thank you. Thank you. And then I can let go. So if they want to pass it back to me, I don't have anybody to pass here to, grab the blade or right by the blade and pass them. What do you pass them? That's right, the handle. Thank you. When they say thank you, you know they've got it, and then you can let go safely, okay? If you're a leader, somebody watching this, you can get your kids in a circle, and you can have them pass it all the way around the circle, and you can watch everybody say thank you, okay? So, all right, next. You're like, yay, it's time to whittle. So, let's talk about whittling. Whittling is great right now in this age of social distancing, because what a lot of us like to do is sit here with our friends and talk and whittle, and that's not good. So think about social distancing and 6 feet apart. But actually we have a little thing, it's called a safety circle. So with your knife closed or just your hand, you don't want anybody close by or something close by. So take your arm, move it around up above you in case there's trees, something hanging you might get caught on. Right now my table's in my way, but I'm gonna do it over here. So you don't want your buddy sitting right next to you, okay? You don't want to get wild and suddenly it skips and you've stabbed your buddy. That's not a good thing, okay? So how you hold a knife, I'll show you on something bigger so you can see better. Open it that way. Okay, I wanted to show you some knives open and shut really easy. If I were to try to shut this one, it's not going to. This is called a locking blade, and I actually have to push something here in the end to get it to close again. But anyway, so you're going to take it in your hand and hold it good and solid. And what a lot of us like to do when we're carving is getting that thumb up there on that blade. You keep your thumb off the blade, because as you're carving or whittling, if you tend to get that finger up here and it's not a locking knife, you might be squeezing and concentrating until the blade snaps shut. So take that thumb, tuck it under your other ones, or just make sure you hold it right there, but keep that thumb out of the way, okay? Alrighty. Let's see. The other thing, the one big rule, and you probably saw me when you came in, is you don't want to cut towards anything live like flesh, okay? Yourself. I see a lot of people like, oh, this is so relaxing, and they're sitting here carving like this, and they're right by their knee. It's like, whoosh, there goes the knee. So if you're going to do that, you know, carve between your knees so you're carving and hitting the ground like this, okay? Or I can carve over this way. Never carve towards yourself. So that's knees. That's also included if you're carving, don't switch and go towards yourself. That's also dangerous too. You like your chin and, you know, that kind of stuff. So never cut towards yourself. While we are talking about whittling, what kind of wood? You know, I almost don't think it matters. It just depends on what you want to make. Dry wood is, or dead, like old wood, is dry. For some things, you want to use that. Sometimes it's a little harder depending on the kind of wood, like oak. You'd be whittling all day because it's really hard. But if you were whittling aspen, cottonwood, some of those are real soft. Those are easy when they're dead. Also, you can carve on green wood, and this is what this is, and sometimes for little detailed things, green is better. So let's kind of stop for a commercial and say, leave no trace. You know, we've talked about this before. So if you're going to get green wood, I had a tree I needed to trim in my yard, so I took just a couple little pieces off, just what I needed. So if you're going to do that, like ask somebody in your household if it's okay to go out and do that. If you do go in the woods, don't go, oh, I need 10 pieces, I'm going to yank them off this one tree. You know, that's probably not good for that tree. So, you know, kind of one here, one there, and really only take what you need, okay? So we want to protect our environment. All right, so sometimes my walking sticks are dead. Those are kind of fun to, you know, whittle the bark off. Green wood, I can get a little bit more detail before it gets really hard. So, all right. Whittling. I know this is what you're all ready for. So I'm going to pull up, I'm dropping stuff here. I'm going to pull up this piece of wood real quick, and I'm going to take my little blue knife because I like that. I'm going to open it up like I told you how to. And the first stroke is just a nice straightaway kind of stroke. Hold your stick so you're not cutting towards any flesh. Hold your knife properly, and just do nice where you're peeling that bark off. This is all about whittling. Is just see how those are coming off really nice and relaxing. And what are the rules? The 10 rules? Sharp. If I don't have a sharp knife, that's not going to happen. I'm going to have to really work at this, okay? But if my knife is sharp, then it comes off. So that's just an easy, so if you're sitting there and you have a stick and you're outside, or even if you're inside because you vacuum these up, just sit there for a little bit. This is what it's about. This is the fun. And I know so many girls, it's just all about sitting, talking with your friends and whittling around a fire, or just, you know, on at your tent at night, you know, you're outside enjoying the evening. So anyway, so that's one, is the straight. Nice long strokes. Just practice that. That's probably what you'll use the most. Now, let's try something different. And I'm going to actually use a different knife because I was using this early, and I know it's very, very sharp. Now there's like draw cutting. I'll get a little closer so you can see. So the tip. And maybe I don't like that. Maybe I want to carve it so it's kind of rounded. It's not. Now this, I don't have a lot of control. So sometimes what I can do is flip my knife over. Now I'm cutting towards myself a little bit, and you probably don't want to do this first. Get real skilled for a while, and then this is a little bit more advanced. But you're going to cut towards, and it's very controlled. And I'm just going around the edge. I have my thumb down. If I were to skip, it's going to miss everything. Okay, I don't know if you can see that real well, but I'm going to just take little pieces off. Okay, I don't do that very often. What I actually do is called, the last one is thumb pushing, and it's a little easier. Is instead of uncontrolled with just one hand, I put my knife on the wood, and then I just take my thumb of my other hand and push it. That way I've got good control with this hand, and I can push it with this. Okay. Another way to do that is, let's say I want to do a little groove. Okay. I'm going to do a couple like dig-ins like this. I'm going to move my stick around, and look at that. I can make little grooves just by doing the thumb pushing. You don't want to really turn it around because you're, cutting towards yourself. So it's easier to make a couple grooves and then switch your stick around like that. So that's all there really is to whittling. Okay, so I'm going to show you some samples of what I've done, okay, because we've got just a couple minutes left. So it's all about practicing. It's all about finding a fun piece of wood and just sitting there with a knife. I mean, really, that's all there is. Oh, I forgot. There are some people out there, I won't mention adults, that are sometimes like, oh my gosh, my girls are too young. And I would say there really is a progression in whittling. And if you're too young, or you feel they're too young for knives, you still have to get them started somewhere. They're still going to have to learn to cook in the kitchen. And what do you have to do? You have to take a paring knife, chop up celery, peel potatoes, that kind of stuff. So you might start off that way, but here's a tried and true way. Just a table knife, soap. So I can teach my girls how to hold the knife. Oh, and if you think table knife, I don't know, that might still be too dangerous. A plastic knife works perfectly. In fact, I'll just switch to the plastic knife and get that straight away so it doesn't come in pieces. This is just soap I had. The best soap is to use Dove because it's really soft, and you can do that. You can get that little thumb pushing. I know people have had people draw like a heart and then carve the heart out. You might carve like a duck, something. So first progression is use soap, and then they get a good feel for carving, holding a knife, watching the proper all those rules. So anyway, sorry, I wanted to jump in there, and when you're done, you already have soap in your hands, you can just go wash them. But now, some projects. So I showed you I used a piece of wood like this to whittle with. I'll show you the progression. I like to make some things that are functional. So this, I just started with a piece of wood like this that I showed you. And then I carved two little, just sort of ornamental little cuts in here. And then I made, well, I just showed you I flattened one side, flattened the other side. And then what I've done is just whittled it around. And then I've got something that actually looks like a knife. Okay, you can see the blade, it's pointed. Obviously it's not sharp because I can hold it. This is a perfect thing that you could make somebody for a gift. And it would be great for your parents who have to open up bills all the time. They could use this as a letter opener. Nobody gets letters anymore, but they get bills. So this is a project that you could do. It's a lot of fun. So make your own little knife, and you can make big ones, small ones. Okay. I'm just gonna, let's say you want a really interesting name tag. Now I didn't put any string on it, but I took a small piece and I did the little grooves on both ends, but then I carved that side of it. Can everybody see that? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that into a really cool name tag. So I'm going to take a marker. I could take a wood burner, and I'm going to write my name real quick. And then I'm going to have the coolest name tag. Okay, so there's a neat little knife project that you can do that's just very simple. Just take a little piece of wood. And I'm into like carving some really fun things. So I carved this, kind of half in the sun, half in the shade. So you can't really tell what this is. Does anybody it's tapered here and then it flares out. Anybody have an idea what that could be, what I'm thinking? I can't read because you're in the shadow, but I like birds. And so I started carving this. It's a bird feather. Now it doesn't really look like a feather, so I do have some other tools. and then I ended up making, and I don't know if you can see all the little designs in that, but it's a feather. So I started off carving that with a real soft wood, and then I used a tool to make the little grooves that look like the actual feathers. You can take driftwood or any kind of wood, carve it down, and this is like a picture frame, and I actually can hang that. I just made carved four sticks, just tied them together, and then I think I just nailed them onto this board or tied them onto the board, stuck a rock in the middle. And you can do picture frames this way and maybe put a drawing in it, so that's one other thing. So I went camping, and I don't want to use real utensils, so I decided I needed a spoon. So spoons are fun. So this is a small one I just kind of started. Here is a bigger one. Like, man, this can like really, stir. This is made out of aspen wood, so it was very easy to carve, very easy to get kind of a straight stick. And so I can stir things, and then if I want bacon or pancakes, I made my own little spatula. Okay, sorry, can't follow. So there's spatula. Anybody ever make any utensils? So I had a primitive unit one time, and we had to make our own spoons because they didn't give us any. My friend made these. These are, she carved these out of cedar. You can't see them, but there's holes. And I could screw this into the wall and hang like a shirt on it. Okay, so these are like pegs. She got them kind of branches. I know it's kind of hard to see, but those can screw into the wall. And now, toasting stick. How many of you roasted hot dogs? So just get a stick. I sort of started the end of this. It's better to use green wood only because you can toast it for a long time and it's not going to catch fire. If it's dead, the tip is going to catch fire if your hot dog or something or your marshmallow is sticking out. So I think I see some of you have used toasting forks. All right, let's see. Other projects. Oh, I have gourds, and I have this ground thing, and I hollowed it out and made it look like something from out west. And then I made a ladder. I whittled each end down, and then I kind of tied them together with a little piece of wire, and I actually made this little guy. So sometimes it's like whittling to make something else. So I have a little guy. This is a little kachina guy climbing up the ladder out of a kiva. I have a great imagination. But anyway, so there's that. Let's move on to big things real quick. So, see this big stick? The end of this is like cedar, but this is just ugly gray, doesn't really look like anything. And I got to looking at the end of this and I thought, man, this would make like the ultimate walking stick with a really interesting end. So I actually had a couple pieces. I find them when I kayak. And I carved the end of this down. It's like the same. It didn't have as many gadgets coming out. But this is my hiking stick. And then I went ahead and whittled all the bark off to make it really nice and shiny. And then I added some leather, some beads. There's another feather, if you can see it, that I carved. And I take that hiking with me everywhere. And I've had people want to buy it from me. And it's like, no, go carve your own. You can take all the bark off a walking stick. And then I really don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I took a wood burner, and I don't know if you can see it in the sunshine, but what I did is I wood burned, after I took all the bark off, I wood burned leaves. So that's another one of my walking sticks. So I started whittling with that. And then last but not least, sometimes wood will amaze you, and I don't know if you'll be able to see the color in this or not, and I know we're just past time. But I wanted to show you, this is sassafras, and people know I love sassafras. Dull, ugly, gray, brown. But as I start carving this, I don't know, again, if you can see the color come out, but all of a sudden you get this beautiful orange color. And I'm going to show you an end result of a previous sassafras. And I don't know if you all can see the color on this or not, but it's a beautiful orange color. So, like I said, I'm in the sun, so I can't see if you can see the color. But sometimes wood will really, change colors before you. So this was that dull gray, and then since then I carved off a lot of the bark, and then I put some varnish stuff on it, and now I have a really cool thing I can put succulents in or something. So think of all the cool things that you can do. So girls, get excited for whittling. It's a really neat thing to do. It's peaceful and it's great. Just get excited about it. Adults, don't fear. You know, they have to start sometime, and you know, if they make a few mistakes along the way, you know, nip a little skin along the way, you just learn. You know, that's what it's all about. So there you go. That's whittling in a nutshell for you. So all you have to really do now is just remember, you know, get that thumb off the blade, don't cut towards yourself, and the whole world's opened up for you. So if you enjoyed this, we do stuff like this all the time in Girl Scouts, and you'd like to, you know, look us up, just go to gs.org/join. It'll tell you all about us. We do this every day at 10 and 2 in the 10 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, Eastern time. And you can find all of this on Girl Scouts of Western Ohio. It's on our Facebook pages. It's on our website. You can get on at midnight and watch. Again, if you have any questions, type them in here before you go, and I'll get on and answer. And then join us again. Mondays are traditions. So next Monday, I think at 10 a.m., we're going to move to a bigger tool. We're going to go to bow saws and hatchets. So if you want to learn how to use those, practice your knife all week, and we will catch you next week. And have fun, enjoy, and go find an awesome pocket knife and a stick and go off and whittle. So we'll see you next time.